All right. Okay, so this lesson is on extra share of voice, which is kind of a key concept in if we look at the cogs again, it's all around this third cog here, which is how much media do you have in comparison to the rest of the category. So it answers two foundational problems that we have around advertising is how much media should we spend and how impactful is creative work on market share? And the theory around extra share of voice or excess share of voice, you might also hear, help to answer these two problems. So the original happened in around 1990 when the Harvard Business Review came out with a paper on this. But what they said was that you can work out the market share increase based on how much media you're spending. And what they said is it's all relative to the category. So your share of media spend minus your share of your actual market share equals your excess share of voice. And what they saw is if you have this excess share of voice, you will actually grow your market share. So if you're a small brand and you're spending like you're a big brand, you're actually going to grow in relationship to how much extra you're spending on media. So this is called ESOV as a strategy. And what we had here is in 1990, as I was saying, Harvard Business Review and Jones came out with the Jones Advertising Intensiveness Curve. And what they showed was for small brands, the more they spent on advertising based on their market share size, they saw an increase in market share the following year. But what they also saw was for bigger brands, they actually had less flexibility. So the smaller brands had a lot of flexibility, where the bigger you got, it actually wasn't that bigger marketing effects. And that was a lot of the assumption is that's because you've got a strong brand by then. You've already set up all those memory connections and you only need to refresh to a certain level. Now, fast forward to 2008, 2007, and the IPA and Binet and Fields came out with a report that said, we agree with everything that's happened, where if you increase your extra share of voice, if you've got 10 points of ESOV, you will grow by 0.5%. That's the usual amount. But what they did is they took that one level further. So I'll explain that concept first. So say your media spend is 30%, your North Face in winter gear, you're spending 30% of the category, but you only have 20% of the market share. You've got an extra share of voice of 10%. So you will grow 0.5%. So you'll grow to 30.5%, even if your advertising's really average. But what they found, Binet and Field, was that the advertising that actually was creatively award-winning had a higher market share gain. So they looked at all the brands that had that extra share of voice, and they mapped that out and saw that there was a correlation that showed that the work that was creatively awarded was 11 times more effective than the non-awarded work. And you can see here that relationship and that correlation. So the yellow line here is the creatively awarded campaigns, and the orange line here is the non-creatively awarded campaigns. And what you see here is this line go up at a higher level when extra share of voice. So when you're 20% above, you're actually, with creatively award-winning work, it was 11 times more effective. So they were seeing a bigger share of market growth that following year. So that was a phenomenal report and really has helped, I think, the creative industry to be more ambitious, and definitely a slide that gets presented a lot. However, you need to know the limitations of that report as well. The two biggest, I'd say, critiques of the report is that ESOV, excess share of voice, has become very hard to measure now. With the proliferation of media channels, it's very hard to work out how much people are spending on each channel. When the original report came out in 1990, it was much easier because you only had TV, radio, billboards, and that was all audited, publicly audited, or there was companies that had that information. Now with walled gardens like Facebook, Amazon, we don't know how much these big players are spending and the market share. You're getting very generic numbers. So Unilever might have an overall Facebook ad budget, but it's very hard to identify how much is being spent on Dove versus Axe. So we're having a lot of trouble getting to the actual numbers to work out if this is still true and to recommend this to clients. So that's one of the drawbacks. The second drawback is you got to take the report with a little bit of a grain of salt, because they base their data on award-winning campaign. They were based on award entries for the IPA. So the IPA is an advertising effectiveness award. And what happened is they actually, they had all this massive data from all these award submissions, and that's what they based this ESOV number off, and the creative effectiveness. And the problem with that is everyone knows the bias that people have of overextending or over-exaggerating their results. And so that's what we believe we may be seeing with the results to that report. So hopefully that makes sense to you. There's a lot of other reading that I'll recommend there as well. Okay.